It's 2 a.m. You're sitting in your car, parked just outside her apartment. Your phone screen glows in the dark, and you keep staring at the last message you sent 6 hours ago. No reply. Your chest feels heavy. Your mind is restless, and every possible scenario runs through your head. Maybe she's busy. Maybe she lost interest. Maybe she's with someone else. And the temptation is there to send another text just to break the silence. But you know exactly how that would come across. Needy, desperate, weak. If you're honest, this isn't new. It's not the first time, or even the 10th time. You've lived the same story with different faces. The pit in your stomach when she grows distant. The racing thoughts when she doesn't respond. The crushing weight when she says she's not looking for anything serious. You tell yourself you'll handle it differently next time, that you'll be stronger, more detached, more in control. But deep down, you know the cycle is repeating itself. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The real problem isn't that she's playing a game. It's that you keep showing up to play it. Today, I want to show you how to break out of this loop forever. Not by building walls around your heart. Not by pretending to stop caring. But by creating something far more powerful. Complete emotional independence. A state where your self-worth is unshakable. Where no woman's behavior can destabilize you. And where rejection stops feeling like devastation and starts feeling like neutral information. The illusion of control. Most men fall into the same trap. They believe that if they can just optimize themselves, become more attractive, more successful, more charming, more strategic, they can somehow guarantee the outcome they want with women. If they play their cards right, they'll be treated well. If they text at the perfect time, say the right thing, or keep their cool just enough, they'll secure her affection. This belief system is a prison. Why? Because it ties your emotional stability to something you cannot control, her behavior. Suddenly, every text, every pause, every subtle change in tone feels like life or death. Your mood rises and falls based on signals you can't influence. You become a hostage to her responses. Think about it. How many hours have you spent dissecting text messages, rereading conversations, and trying to decode what she really means? How often have you bent over backwards, altering your behavior just to keep her interested? You strategize, you perform, you manage her perception of you, and in the process, you lose track of who you actually are. Here's the brutal reality. You cannot control how anyone treats you. You cannot guarantee she won't lose interest, change her mind, or choose someone else. And the more you try to control those outcomes, the more powerless you feel. This powerlessness is a birthplace of desperation, the exact energy that pushes women away. Because when your self-worth is dependent on her validation, it leaks out in everything you do, and she can feel it, where the pain really comes from. Now, here's the shift most men never realize. The pain doesn't actually come from her actions. It comes from the meaning you attach to them. She doesn't text back. That's neutral. But your mind interprets it as, she's not interested. I'm not good enough. I'll always end up alone. Those interpretations are what cause suffering, not the unread message itself. She chooses someone else. Again, neutral information. But you spin it into a story. I can't compete. Other men are better than me. I'll never find love. That story, not her decision, is what crushes you. This distinction matters because it reveals where your real power lies. You cannot control her choices, but you can control your interpretations. You cannot control her behavior, but you can control the stories you tell yourself about that behavior. And until you take control of your inner narrative, you'll keep outsourcing your happiness to external circumstances. You'll keep trying to fix the outside world instead of addressing the inside world, the unconscious battlefield. The real war isn't happening in your text conversations. It's happening in your unconscious mind. Every wound, every rejection, every childhood experience that shaped your relationship with love and self-worth, it all lives there. And until you bring it to the surface, it will run your life on autopilot. If your mother was distant, every woman pulling away might trigger panic inside you. If you felt abandoned as a child, a canceled date might feel like devastation. If you were starved of validation growing up, you may spend your adult years seeking it compulsively from women. These wounds write the script for how you interpret female behavior. They amplify small rejections into catastrophes. They make you feel like someone ignoring you for a few hours is a crisis, when really it's not. And because these patterns operate unconsciously, they feel real. They feel justified. You react with disproportionate intensity because the situation is poking at something much deeper than the current moment. Why the persona keeps you stuck. Most men deal with this by building a persona. They create a mask to hide the parts of themselves they think are weak. They act confident, aloof, unaffected, even when inside they're panicking. But here's the problem. Personas are exhausting to maintain. They keep you trapped in performance mode. Instead of addressing your wounds, you cover them up, and covering them up only makes them stronger. Real strength doesn't come from pretending you're unbothered. It comes from integration, from facing your wounds directly, acknowledging them, and learning they don't define you. Yes, rejection hurts. Yes, you crave connection. Yes, you sometimes feel insecure. None of that makes you less of a man. In fact, owning it makes you more powerful because it frees you from being controlled by it. Integration, the first step to immunity. Emotional immunity doesn't mean you stop feeling. It doesn't mean rejection suddenly feels great. It means you stop letting those feelings control you. You learn to experience pain without collapsing under it. Integration is the process of bringing your hidden parts into the light. The insecure, needy, vulnerable parts of you. Instead of rejecting them, you acknowledge them. You stop fighting against your humanity. You embrace it. When you do this, something changes. Suddenly, rejection is no longer a trigger. It's just feedback. Her silence is no longer proof of your unworthiness. It's simply her choice. You gain the ability to sit with discomfort without running from it, to feel loneliness without frantically chasing someone to fill it, to feel desire without letting it control you. That's what real strength looks like. Not the fake mask of indifference, but the deep resilience that comes from knowing who you are, wounds and all. In the next part, we'll go deeper into how to build what psychologists call individuation, the process of becoming a complete individual, no longer defined by other people's approval. You'll see how to develop internal validation systems, enforce revolutionary boundaries, and start living as the kind of man who no longer needs external permission to feel worthy. Let's talk about individuation. It sounds like a complicated psychological word, but the essence is simple. Becoming a complete, self-sufficient individual instead of a man whose emotions rise and fall based on other people's approval. Most men never reach this stage. They spend their lives reacting to women's texts, to society's expectations, to the moods of the people around them. Their identity is built on fragile foundations. The validation they receive, the approval they're chasing, the roles they think they're supposed to play. And here's the dangerous part. When your identity depends on others, you're always vulnerable to manipulation. A woman pulling away doesn't just disappoint you. It destabilizes your entire sense of self. Individuation is about breaking that dependency. It's about discovering who you really are when you strip away the masks, the performances, and the approval-seeking. Who are you without the mask? Ask yourself this. If no one could ever praise you again, if no one could ever give you validation, who would you be? Would you still hit the gym if no woman ever noticed? Would you still pursue that career if it didn't impress anyone? Would you still crack jokes if nobody laughed? For many men, the honest answer is no. They built their lives around what others will think, not around what they actually value. That's why individuation begins with brutal self-honesty. You must separate the version of yourself that exists for approval from a version of yourself that exists for truth. It's not easy. It means admitting you've been performing. It means admitting you've been bending your personality, your interests, even your desires, to fit into molds that were never yours. But here's the reward. When you stop chasing the man you think women want and start becoming the man you actually are, you step into a freedom most men never taste. Internal validation systems. So how do you get there? How do you stop depending on outside approval? It starts with building what I call internal validation systems. Instead of needing someone else to tell you you're worthy, you begin recognizing your own worth through your actions and your values. For example, when you commit to a workout routine and stick to it, the pride comes not from how many compliments you get, but from the discipline itself. When you create art, write, or build something, the fulfillment comes not from applause, but from the act of creation. When you uphold your values, even when it costs you something, you feel grounded because you're aligned with yourself. This is what makes you unshakable. Approval becomes a bonus, not the foundation. You enjoy it when it comes, but you don't collapse when it doesn't. The lonely stage. But I'll be straight with you. Individuation is lonely. When you stop living by other people's expectations, you inevitably lose some of the groups and relationships that were built on your performance. You stop fitting in with circles that require you to suppress your true nature. You stop tolerating environments where approval comes at the cost of self-betrayal. At first, it feels like loss. You might feel isolated. You might question if you're doing the right thing. But over time, this loneliness transforms into liberation, because what fills the space is authenticity. Connections built on who you really are, not who you pretended to be. The loneliness is not punishment. It's the initiation into becoming sovereign, emotional self-regulation. Another pillar of individuation is emotional self-regulation, the ability to manage your own internal state regardless of external turbulence. Most men are like emotional leaves in the wind. If she praises you, you're up. If she ignores you, you're down. If work goes well, you're confident. If it goes poorly, you're worthless. That volatility makes you easy to manipulate. Self-regulation is the antidote. It's the skill of comforting yourself when you're hurt, motivating yourself when you're discouraged, and grounding yourself when you're triggered. It doesn't mean suppressing emotion. It means holding your emotions with maturity. When rejection stings, you let yourself feel it without spiraling. When loneliness hits, you acknowledge it without running to the nearest distraction. This steadiness is magnetic. Women sense it instantly. Instead of projecting desperation or volatility, you radiate calm stability, revolutionary boundaries. Now let's shift to boundaries, because this is where many men sabotage themselves. Most men have weak boundaries for one simple reason: fear. They believe that enforcing limits will cause women to lose interest, so they tolerate disrespect. They accept inconsistent communication. They let their time, energy, and attention be drained because they're terrified of losing access. But here's the paradox. Every time you compromise your boundaries to keep her around, you lower your value in her eyes. Revolutionary boundaries flip the script. Instead of being reactive, waiting until you're mistreated and then exploding, you set proactive non-negotiables. You decide ahead of time what behaviors you will never tolerate, no matter how attracted you are. Maybe it's dishonesty. Maybe it's disrespect. Maybe it's constant flakiness. Whatever your non-negotiables are, you enforce them without apology. And here's the thing. Enforcing boundaries doesn't require aggression. You don't need to lecture or punish. You simply remove access. You reduce your investment. You walk away when necessary. Yes, it will cause some women to disappear. But those are the women who are planning to mistreat you anyway. Losing them is not a cost. It's a filter. Quality women respect boundaries. They're drawn to men who value themselves too much to be manipulated. Boundaries create safety and trust because they show you're not a pushover and you're not desperate. Overinvestment, the silent killer. Another trap. Boundaries protect you from is overinvestment. How many times have you poured energy, money, or emotional labor into someone who wasn't giving nearly as much back? How many times did you justify it because maybe she just needs time, or maybe she'll appreciate me eventually? Overinvestment is self-betrayal. It's gambling your dignity for a potential payoff that rarely comes. Healthy men invest proportionately. They match energy with energy. They don't give endlessly in hope of being chosen. They give as a reflection of being already chosen. When you stop overinvesting, resentment disappears. Desperation disappears. And ironically, attraction increases because she senses that you're not dependent on her response to feel whole. A life beyond relationships. Here's the deeper truth. Real immunity doesn't come from better strategies with women. It comes from building a life so rich, so fulfilling, that women become an enhancement, not a necessity. This means independence in every area. Emotional independence. You can regulate your emotions without needing constant comfort. Social independence. You have strong friendships, community ties, and networks outside of romance. Financial independence. You're not relying on anyone else to survive or thrive. Domestic independence. You can handle your own household and lifestyle. Recreational independence. You pursue hobbies and passions that light you up. Sexual independence. You're not driven into poor choices by desperation for intimacy. When your life is full, you stop seeking women to complete you. And paradoxically, that fullness makes you more attractive, because women are drawn to men who are already whole. In the next part, we'll explore how to take this even further, how to expand your consciousness so you can see relationship dynamics with clarity rather than being trapped in emotional reactivity. We'll talk about building a masculine core that grounds you in purpose, developing sovereignty over your emotional life, and learning how to transform rejection into fuel for growth. By now, you understand that the real battleground isn't your behavior. It's your inner world. You've seen how individuation, internal validation, and revolutionary boundaries begin to free you from the endless cycle of neediness and rejection. But let's go even deeper. The highest level of freedom is what I call emotional sovereignty, the ability to remain steady and self-directed regardless of external turbulence. This doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being ruled by feelings. Emotions as information, not commands. Most men mistake emotions for instructions. Rejection stings, so they chase harder. Loneliness hurts, so they settle for less. Desire flares, so they compromise their values. Sovereignty begins when you understand that emotions are signals, not orders. They're data points. Rejection doesn't mean you must pursue approval. It's simply telling you that an old wound has been touched. Loneliness doesn't mean you must run to the nearest woman. It means you're craving connection. When you stop reacting automatically, you gain the power to choose. You feel the emotion, but you decide the response. That's freedom, the practice of sitting with discomfort. Here's the part most men avoid: discomfort. Whenever pain arises, the instinct is to numb it through distractions, hookups, alcohol, endless scrolling, or chasing validation. But every time you run from pain, you teach your mind that you can't handle it. Sovereignty requires the opposite. It requires sitting with discomfort until you realize it won't destroy you. That rejection, you breathe through it. That ache of loneliness, you let it sit in your chest without scrambling to escape. That anxiety, you watch it, name it, and allow it to pass. Paradoxically, when you stop resisting emotions, they lose their grip. They become temporary experiences, not life sentences. Building the masculine core. At the heart of emotional sovereignty lies a masculine core, a sense of purpose and identity that exists independently of women's opinions. The masculine core is built by pursuing goals that fulfill you intrinsically, not to look impressive, not to get dates, not to show off, but because they matter to you. For some men, it's building a business. For others, it's mastering a craft, excelling in a career, strengthening their body, or developing spiritually. The specifics don't matter. What matters is that the pursuit itself gives you meaning. The masculine core also thrives on brotherhood. Too many men isolate themselves, making women their only emotional outlet. But men who build strong bonds with other men, through mentorship, camaraderie, challenge, and accountability, become far less dependent on female approval. Physical practice matters too. Strength training, martial arts, outdoor challenges, these connect you with your body and build real evidence of capability. Intellectual growth sharpens your mind. Spiritual grounding provides perspective that keeps relationship drama small in the grand scheme of life. When you build this core, you stop orbiting around women. Instead, women are drawn into your orbit, the filter effect. Here's one of the paradoxes of emotional immunity. The less you need validation, the more attractive you become to the right kind of women. Why? Because neediness repels. A man who can't stand on his own, who crumbles at silence, who panics at rejection. He unconsciously communicates low value. Women may tolerate him, but they won't truly respect him. But a man who is whole in himself, who doesn't chase approval, who has standards, who is willing to walk away, that man communicates abundance. He radiates confidence without even trying. And here's the best part. Emotional sovereignty automatically filters out the wrong women, the ones who thrive on manipulation, who need you desperate, who lose interest when you're not chasing. They'll vanish. They were never meant for you anyway. The women who remain are the ones who value connection over control, partnership over power games, respect over manipulation, reframing rejection. When you achieve this level of growth, rejection stops being devastation. It becomes data, information, feedback. She doesn't text back? That's a data point about her priorities, not about your worth. She chooses someone else? That's information about her path, not a verdict on your value. Even painful breakups stop being earth-shattering. Yes, you'll feel grief, but you won't collapse, because you know that your life is still full. Your core is still intact. Your purpose still moves forward. And here's the radical shift. You start to thank rejection, because every trigger points to an old wound that needs healing. Every disappointment reveals a belief you still need to challenge. Every goodbye clears space for someone better aligned with your authentic self. Consciousness expansion. At this point, the journey is about perspective, expanding your consciousness so you can see relationship dynamics clearly without getting lost in emotional fog. You begin to notice patterns in both yourself and others. You recognize when a woman is creating hot and cold drama to maintain control. You see when your own triggers are being activated. You pause before repeating old mistakes. Conscious men no longer confuse manipulation for affection or drama for passion. They see clearly, and with clarity comes freedom of choice, living from fullness. The final stage of immunity is this: building a life so fulfilling that relationships become an addition, not a necessity. Your days are already rich with purpose, growth, challenge, connection, and joy. A woman entering your life doesn't fill a void. She joins an already meaningful journey. This is why emotional immunity doesn't make you cold or closed off. On the contrary, it makes you more capable of love, because you're no longer giving from desperation. You're giving from abundance. You're not clinging, you're choosing. Responsibility as liberation. And let me end with this principle: responsibility. Taking responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself for what women do. It means recognizing that your reactions, your patterns, your choices are yours alone. When you feel devastated by rejection, it's not her text that destroyed you. It's the meaning you gave it. When you repeatedly attract the wrong partners, it's not fate. It's the dynamics you've been unconsciously participating in. Responsibility hurts at first because it strips away the victim narrative, but it's also the key to freedom. Because once you accept responsibility, you gain the power to change. You stop waiting for women to behave differently, and you start building yourself differently, the man who cannot be shaken. When you do this work, healing your wounds, integrating your shadow, building your core, expanding your consciousness, you become a man who cannot be shaken. Rejection no longer defines you. Silence no longer controls you. Games no longer trap you. You're still human. You'll still feel sadness, disappointment, even heartbreak, but none of it will destroy you, because your foundation is deeper than any relationship. And paradoxically, that's what makes you magnetic. The man who no longer needs validation becomes the man most worthy of it. So if you're tired of the endless cycle of desperation and disappointment, the way out isn't learning better strategies. It's building a stronger self. It's shifting the battlefield from your phone to your inner world. Because once you master that, no woman can ever hurt you the way they used to. And from that place of strength, you'll attract not just attention, but respect. Not just interest, but genuine love. And that is the real freedom you've been searching for all along.